Hey guys! So I'm here today. I'm super excited to share with you 10 things that you need to know before buying your first house. So this past year I was a first time home buyer and I have all the tips and tricks and everything that I learned that was like bizarre. So let's get into it. So I am 24 years old currently and I did get a house with my boyfriend at the time, and that's how I got approved, but currently I'm living in the house alone. So I wanted to share all the tips and tricks, like I said, all the things that I learned, because I did literally basically all of the research and reaching out to people, all of that stuff. So I know a lot of info, and buying a house at 24 and being a first-time house buyer in general is a lot, and you don't really realize all the things you need to know before even buying a house. There's a lot of things when I first went into looking for houses on Zillow, everything like that, that I did not realize. And now being in a house, I'm like, okay, I also realize this now as well. First thing would be a fenced-in yard. I didn't realize how big it was. I knew I wanted a dog at some point. If we find a cheaper house, then we can just, pay to get one done, install one ourselves. It's not that big a deal. But it was. Because to get a fence done, just like by a company, it was almost $10,000. I was like, oh, that's a lot of money. And so I was like, oh my gosh, if we already bought a house with a fence, that would have helped a lot. But we didn't, obviously. So that was something big that I didn't realize was as important, because I just, for some reason, thought it was cheaper to get a fence installed. Also, in regards of the house, I didn't realize how important a basement or extra storage would be. There were a few houses that we looked at with no basements, and I fell in love with one of them because it just was so aesthetic and it didn't have a basement. I didn't think it was necessary. Luckily, we didn't get it because another person bought us out, I think, full in cash. However, that was a time when houses were hot on the market. They still are, so that's what's hard. We thought a basement wouldn't be a deal breaker, but now that I have a basement, I'm like, okay, I'm glad we did get one with a basement because, and I keep using this interchangeably, I and we, it's hard to like, process and figure out what term is the best at this current moment. So I'm just going to go back from we and I. So yes, basements are important in storage, because I was like, if we had the other house, where the heck would I put all this crap that we have? Decorations for holidays, just random storage for traveling stuff that you don't currently need, and just, that's bizarre. Like, I just couldn't imagine a life and a house without a basement, so that is actually very important. Be it unfinished or not, at least there's storage down there, and at least there's more room to do stuff with that instead of not having one at all. Number of rooms is also a big one that I realized now, and I was like, 2 bedrooms perfect for us, and it is, but it does feel a little bit smaller sometimes. Like, I kind of wish we had a 3rd bedroom. However, that does change the house price. So what we're looking for, this 2-bedroom one was perfect. Obviously you can't change it now, but that would be something I would definitely be looking at more if I bought another house, or if I was going into this all over again. Going kind of back to the basement, basements are important as well a little bit, because then it's more living area. I feel like that's not a huge deal breaker, but a finished one was so nice. Like, that was so nice. The only thing we had to change on there was the carpet, and that was decently affordable. So that was pretty good, and if I had to do it again, would I find one with a finished basement? Probably, because that's a lot of work. But like I said, with prices and just in general our budget, you just can't be too picky. Inspections are also very big. I know sometimes now with the market being so hot, people are waiving inspections, but like, I just don't think that's a good idea. And I'm not even a realtor, my hair. And I just don't think that's a good idea, because there's so many things that you do not notice that a realtor may not notice when you're walking through that house that is a problem with the house that could be so much money to fix in the long run. So I personally say never ever waive inspections, no matter how much you want the house. Specifically with inspections, you do not know how good the foundation is without like an actual like professional going to inspect that. Like, yeah, your realtor could probably say, oh yeah, it looks decent, but without that inspection, then you literally don't know. And house flips, those are really big and prevalent, so I definitely would say don't waive inspections. I don't know, that's my thoughts. That's what my realtor said as well. There's some minor things that the inspection could find that, I mean, isn't the biggest deal, I guess. It's like when the HVAC system and what year that is, you could replace that. How the windows are, that can be replaceable as well, but isn't like a deal breaker, I would say. But biggest thing is foundation and walls. Have they had like termites before? All of that stuff, because I've heard crazy wild stories of foundations, and if your foundation isn't sturdy, your house is going to collapse, and that's not the vibe. And obviously you're probably going to have to pay for that given you have insurance, but still, I'm pretty sure you're going to probably have to pay that, and then you also won't have a house to live in. So that is not the vibe. Like I said, also specifically with like termites and stuff, I saw this article online like a little bit after we bought our house, and I was like, oh my gosh, this girl, bought a house, all settled in, and like a couple months later, the whole house like collapsed almost, and there was a termite infestation. And I was like, oh my gosh, one, I would cry, and two, I don't like bugs, so I would cry again because of the bugs and not my house collapsing. Next one is money. Obviously, you need money for a house. So I didn't realize the debt to income ratio was so impactful. Because like, here's me, oh, I can always go do some random odd jobs if I need more money, things like that. But obviously the bank doesn't see that way, and the bank literally just takes your hard assets that you have and puts that in a debt to income ratio. So let's say you make $5,000, that was just the randomest number ever, $5,000 a month, but your debt from your car, from, another loan that you have, from installments payments that you have from different places, like because you bought furniture and you have a $200, installment on that. And then, by the end of all of those things, you only have $2,000 left. And that makes you not be able to afford a bigger house than you thought because of all that debt that you do have. Luckily, at that time, we had 2 incomes coming in, and we did not have much debt at all. We just had 1 car loan, I think, at the time, and then a couple credit cards. But those honestly didn't count by the end of the day. So that was very helpful. So if you are trying to look for a house, definitely make sure you're trying to get your debt lower so you can be able to afford more. And if you can't get your debt lower, just know that you are probably going to have to find a smaller house unless you have a lot of money set to the side for a down payment, because that can factor into it as well. So for example, if you put a bigger down payment down, obviously your loan amount will be smaller. So that means you could potentially afford a bigger house because you're putting more of your own money down versus getting the loan from the bank. Another big thing that you will learn very quickly is you cannot start shopping for houses working with a realtor until you have been approved from a bank. So to be approved from a bank, they obviously have to pull a hard credit from your credit score. They have to look at all your credit, look at your banks. It's a lot of paperwork, so definitely know that going in. But you can't even go shopping. You can go on Zillow and look, but you can't even do like serious shopping until you have been approved and how much you have been approved, so they know what your budget is to buy a house. Because if you do not have that, they're gonna laugh in your face and basically be like, we are not working with you until you get that. Because one, it wastes their time, and two, is wasting your time because you aren't even approved yet. And I think when they pull your credit and the approval, all of that process lasts about 3 months, and then you have to get reapproved. Because within those 3 months, you could, buy something else to make your debt to income ratio lower. You could, so many things. For example, you could look that up, but a lot of things can happen in 3 months, but then you just have to reapply. My next biggest thing is working with a realtor. It is a game changer and a headache saver and amazing. I worked with one of my mom's friends, and she's just a family friend in general. Her name's Jessica States. I can link her down below if you're in the Lincoln, Omaha area. But it was a game changer because one, she knows what to look for. Like, what am I, this first time house buying girly, looking for? I'm just looking for a nice house. Given where some of my priorities, stunting my judgment of what houses we wanted, maybe, because I was like, oh, this isn't cute, I don't want this one. But she, was more like, okay, this is what we need to focus on. You need to find one within this build date, essentially, obviously with a good foundation, all of these things. And she just really helped guide you through the whole process versus me and my boyfriend at the time, just wandering around trying to figure out how to even buy a house. She also did all the paperwork, she did all the bidding, she did all of that stuff. And that's amazing to me too, because I am not taking the time and effort to do all of that. / I would do it all wrong. Kind of like with taxes. I don't trust myself to do my own taxes. I'd rather pay someone a little bit of money to do that. I'm not trying to screw up something like that because that is very big. Also, when you are looking for a realtor, it's amazing for the buyer because as the buyer, you do not pay anything. So it is basically free because she will get or he will get a commission from the seller. So it's a really mutually benefiting relationship because once she sells you that house, she gets the income from that. So as a first-time home buyer, you will be paying nothing to work with a realtor, so why not? Also work with a really good realtor because some realtors out there I feel like are going to try to push you for a bigger house, maybe if you put more down, blah, 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 and push you to what you don't want and pushing you past your limits. So the one that I worked with, Jessica, I'm super happy because she knew our budget, she knew our situation, what we had, and did not ever try to push us to do something we didn't want to do. She was very cautious of what houses to look for. If a house didn't meet this certain expectation, even though we maybe wanted it, she was like, no, I don't think it's worth it. lots of things like that. So that helps so much. Next thing is location. Location is really big because you may not want to be in a certain part of town because of crime, things like that. And personally for me, I looked a little bit, but I wasn't super, set on a location because there's some good places in Lincoln where I live and some bad places, and I kind of was like in between. And obviously I wasn't trying to go to the rich neighborhoods because I don't have a paycheck like that. So my expectations weren't super high with location. Also, I do not plan on having a kid for a little while, so that wasn't really a factor of, schools in my location, in my district. So I was just like, once I get this house, I'm not going to have a kid for a while, build up that equity, have a place to live for the time being, and that was that. Also, affordability also plays a factor into location. So if you can't afford the richest neighborhood, try to find a step down or a couple steps down where you still will feel safe, but isn't in the rich part of the neighborhood that you can't even afford. Next one is tour. Touring is the biggest thing too. I know I've been saying all of these have been the biggest, but touring is big. There's been some houses that we looked at on Zillow that looked so cool in the photos, looked perfect, nice, whatever. And then when we got there, it was not like that. Like there was this one, for example, they painted their counters, but in the photos, it looked like they had nice, like dark, cedar wood cabinets, but when you went in there, it was just rolled on paint and it was already starting to chip. So definitely go in and go look. Also, photos sometimes can make things look bigger and smaller, things like that. So some of these pictures too that we saw on Zillow, I'm like, oh my gosh, this room looks huge. But then when you get into that room in real life, you're like, wait, this does not look like what the photos look like. Also, big thing with touring, you actually get to see like what the location is like, what it looks like inside versus when you're looking outside in the house. Also, you get to look more into like the closets and storage spaces, because in a lot of those photos too, they're not going to show all the storage spaces. So that is very beneficial as well. So no matter how desperate you are to find a house, do not just go by photos, because this is a very long-term and very expensive commitment. So definitely do your due diligence, tour that place, get those inspections, all of those things, because that's a lot of money and that's a long loan that you will be on if you're living in this house for a very long time. And like I said, paying a lot for it, and if it's not what you want, it's going to make you not want to pay for it and kind of be resentful and want to cry. Next thing is something that my realtor told us as well, is cosmetics are easy to change. So you have to kind of look past that. You have to kind of go in with an open mind and be like, okay, cabinets can be changed, colors, painting can be changed, appliances can be changed, carpet can be changed, all of that stuff. And sometimes that is hard to look past, especially for me, because I'm like, oh, I'm a kind of a perfectionist, so I'm like, I want these to look beautiful the second I step into here. But it's not like that. So that definitely helped me too, is knowing that there are some things you can change and you can look past for a house that actually could be really great versus, spending the extra money for everything to be perfect and then something else be wrong. So no house that you move into is going to be completely exactly how you want. And that's the fun part about owning a house, is you can completely change your house when you buy it however you want. So that's something definitely to keep in mind. Next thing is maintenance. And did I realize this? Yes. However, I didn't realize the extent of it. When you're living in a house, you're obviously going to have to maintenance it. If something goes wrong, if something breaks, you're going to have to be doing that. And that's the thing that sometimes is hard for me, because I'm a girl and I'm like, I need a man to help me do these things. Given sometimes I do that. But it's hard sometimes, and obviously you have to have money on the side if these things do go wrong. Like if my fridge goes out, I'm not going to have a fridge, things like that. Because if you live in an apartment, obviously all that stuff is fixed for you, not on your dime. To figure out, do the yard work, mow, things like that, all of that fun stuff that tails along with owning a house that sometimes I didn't realize and sometimes I do, and I'm like, this is not the fun parts of living in a house. At least personally for me, I'm not a big yard work girly or mowing girly, but I will do anything in the house, organizing, all of that fun stuff. But you can't just do that part to own a house, unfortunately. And honestly, what I learned too is if you don't ever mow your lawn, you will actually get fined and get in trouble with that, and I think that's cool and bizarre. Next thing is money. Like I said, that's overarching thing. You need money to buy a house, and what sucks sometimes in the market when house market is crazy and some people have full cash to buy houses, and you're like, wow, that's definitely not fair. And people and big agencies also buy houses just to rent them out, and I think that kind of sucks, because I'm like, I feel like people who want to buy a house for themselves should get priority. But money talks. Someone who's selling a house obviously is gonna be like, if they're gonna pay me full cash, might as well. Which I get. If I was in that position, I probably would do the same thing. But with that, you do have to realize too, you have to have a decent amount of money on the side that you have the option to spend money on, or have a really good credit card, because every house you move into, there's going to be something that needs to be done. So for example, in the house that we moved into, we had to pay to get the carpet redone. That was about $2,000. We had to put a fence in. That was about $2,000 again. If we didn't do it on our own, it would have been like $5,000 to $10,000 and closer to the $10,000. And then we had to do just small things and buy a couple things for the house that we didn't have, like a vacuum, mower, yard work appliances, things like that that you don't really realize that you don't have until you don't have it and you're like, well, crap, I need this. So if we didn't have money on the side, or at least a credit card to be able to put some of that stuff on, we would have been screwed and not have anything. Given, you know, you can make it work, but you definitely, if you are in the market to buying a house, just know you should have some money on the side for everything extra, because, you know, we would live in a perfect world if you could move into the perfect dream house with all the appliances you need, with everything so perfect, and have unlimited supplies of money to pay for this perfect house. You know, that'd be so amazing if life worked like that, but unfortunately it does not. So unless you do have unlimited amount of money, this is for you, because that's not how life works for me and when I was buying a house. The next thing isn't super fun either, but it's logistics. So there's a lot of logistics that I didn't realize either. So most of the time too, when you buy a house, there's a lot of time period and waiting period within that. First, you're waiting to even see the house, then you're waiting to put the offer down, then you're waiting for them to look at the offer, to accept the offer. If they don't accept it, you try again. Once they accept it, you have to do the inspections, waiting for that. And then after the inspections, you have to wait for the bank approval, you have to wait for all the bank stuff, all of the insurance stuff. Once you actually get the house, they accept you, the seller accepts you, then you also have to wait for the seller to be able to move out. So there's a lot of stuff with that. So buying a house too took us about like 2 months, I would say, to fully move in. So it definitely is not a quick process by any means, and there's a lot of hiccups and stuff. When we were putting offers on the house, we were just going back and forth with different offers, things like that, and also just with the bank too, some hiccups came from that. So it's a lot. So once you're ready to buy a house, also don't have too much on your plate, because it's a lot of mental load and a lot of paperwork, a lot of things to do. So obviously there's a lot of give and take with buying a house, and with anything you do, that's a big long commitment. So definitely know that there is a house out there for you. It may be hard to find. You may not get everything that's on your wish list of this house, but that's okay. And being okay with that, I feel like, is the biggest step as well. So if you have any questions about houses, all of that fun stuff, or you want a realtor to work with, like I said, I'll have that linked down below. She was amazing. I love her so much, and I still stay in contact with her now. She is a good friend, and I really appreciate her, because like I said, she's done so much for us, and she's just so helpful and not pushy with anything, even if we don't have like a lot of money. You know, like some real estate agents are like, oh, I only want to work with like $1 million houses, and as much as that would be nice, we just can't do that. So I like how she caters to everyone. But just overall, if you have any questions about house buying, all that fun stuff, my experience, even more, comment them down below or DM me on Instagram, and I'd love to share that with you more in depth if you have certain questions. Also, if you want to see the house that we did buy, the empty house tour, as well as when it's fully furnished, I'll have that link down below so you can check those out. So I hope you guys liked watching this. If you have any more questions, feel free to DM me on Instagram, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Bye, guys.